In our class, we're going to be working with a lot of different base systems, and I think that the Mayan numeration system is one of the most interesting ones. So technically what they are starting with is what's called a base 20 system. We use a base 10 system where we have something like so like this set of symbols right here would mean that we have 4 groups of 1, we have 3 groups of 10, we have 1 group of 10 squared or 100, and 2 groups of 1,000 or 10 cubed. They started off by representing groups of 1, 20, 20 squared, and 20 cubed. So very similar to ours. So what this set of symbols would mean, so conch shell means 0, dot means 1, line means 5. Okay, so this would represent up here 2 groups of 8,000. Then we have 6 groups of 400. And then we have 13 groups of 20. And then we have 0 groups of 1. So if we add all this up, we could actually figure out what this number represents in our base 10 system. And so 2 times 8,000, that's 16,000. 6 times 400 is 2,400. 13 times 20 is 260. 0 times 1 is 0. Add these up. 6, 8, 1. We get 8,660. This is what this number represents in our base 10 system. So here's their base 20 system. Here's our base 10 system. These set of symbols mean the same thing. Later, they decided to alter their base 20 system to be like a modified sort of system. So this is no longer a base 20 system. This is now something a little bit different. They made, so instead of having this set of symbols represent, like, you have groups of 20 cubed, groups of 20 squared, groups of 20, groups of just ones. Now, so the groups of 1s and groups of 20, these stay the same. But instead of groups of 20 squared, they made it 20 times 18, so a little bit smaller. So this now represents 6 groups of 360 as opposed to 6 groups of 400 as it would mean before. And this represents 2 groups of, instead of 20 cubed as before, it's now 20 squared times 18. So that third 20 just becomes like an 18 in here. So now this number would represent, so we have, same old 0 times 1 and 13 times 20 from what it meant before, but now we would, up here, we would have 6 groups of 360 and 2 groups of 7,200. So these groups would now be smaller. And so what number does this represent in our base 10 system? The set of symbols would now represent 14,400 plus 2,160. That's what 6 times 360 is, plus 260 plus 0. Add them all up. 8, 6, 1. So we would get 16,820. So using their modified system, this now represents 16,820, whereas before it just represented 18,660. Okay, so why do they do this change? The reason that they did this change is because they could more easily talk about numbers that are like close to 360 or 365. So like a year is 365 days roughly, and so they were very interested in like tracking years and calendars and all that good stuff. So they wanted their base 10 system to be very like amenable to that. So if you wanted to represent the number 360 with their system, their new system, where like this would represent groups of 360. They would just have one group of 360 and then just nothing else. So like no groups of 7200, you could literally just like get rid of that. Like that didn't really need to be there. And then no groups of 20, no groups of 1. By the way, they wouldn't write like any of this. Like this stuff would just like not be there when they are writing their symbols. This is really just for us, right? If you wanted to represent the number 365, you would do something very similar. You would have one group of 360, no groups of 20. That would be like too much, and then 5 groups of 1. So this one right here would represent 365, whereas this is 360. In their old system, they would represent both of those numbers as follows. So you wouldn't need any groups of 8,000 or 400. Those are too big. So you just ignore those. And then how many groups of 20 would you have? You would just have 18 groups of 20, right? 3 plus 15, 18 groups of 20, and then no groups of 1. So this is 360 in their old system. So slightly more complicated. And then 365 in their old system would be, well, this right here is 18 groups of 20, which is 360 again. And then this right here is like 5 groups of 1. So this right here would also be 365, but using their old system. Okay. All right, and yeah, that's all I want to say for that.